Hey, Charlie.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking.
Sweet. Yeah. Thank you for joining. Also, thank you to Natasha for setting this up. How are things? I guess you guys are pretty busy now with the release of the new album.
Yeah, we've just been like practicing and doing our best to get it in front of the right people, but also there's this sort of strange feeling of like taking your hands off the wheel and just letting people enjoy it and discover it. But I will say it's a really cathartic and pleasant feeling having it out in the world after working on it for so long.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I believe it said it took you 4 years of writing, 2 years of recording, and you went from 60 down to 12 songs. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I was writing. Basically, I don't know how familiar you are with the history of the band, but I think we ended up finishing recording on our previous album, Perfectionism, in February of 2019. So then it was this thing of probably a little bit before then, I would have started the writing process for new material because yeah, when you're in the studio, you're not necessarily recording material that's brand new, right? So yeah, I do believe that some of the material for this thing are what have yous 4 or 5 years old. Yeah.
Okay. We'll definitely want to focus on the new album. I am not myself. But before we get into that, of course, I like to do a little deep dive into the history of the band. So basically, for people who don't know, again, name of the band is Hotel Mira. But before that, it was Japanese Girls, and that was inspired by this female Japanese indie group called Mass of the Fermenting Dregs,
Yeah.
which I've never heard of.
It's
But
an,
I'm curious.
yeah.
So that's where Japanese Girls came from. Where does Hotel Mira come from?
Hotel Mira comes from having 800 band names that nobody liked, and then I called up my friend sort of in desperation, and he's really good with words. He's the singer of the Zolas, Zach Gray. And so I was like, we need a new name. Do you have like any that you're not using? And he was like, I think the Mira Hotel would be a good name for a band. And I was like, I agree. I think it might be catchier if we reversed it. But that's pretty much it, man. Like I want the experience of what Hotel Mira means to just be the umbrella term for the music we make. Like, I want the music to be the most important thing. So what I want Hotel Mira to mean is the four individuals in the band and the music we're making these days. And I think it looks cool on a t-shirt, and I love the fact that it's sort of ageless and a bit of a blank slate on purpose. So there's less to sort of get in the weeds about. I wanted a name that reminded me of Radiohead or the Grateful Dead or some of my favorite band names, which really one could see themselves comfortably aging in and playing in a band called Hotel Mira well into your old age. That's sort of what I was trying to achieve.
Interesting. Okay. I'm glad you said that because you mentioned in the past about how before, so you put out Perfectionism, Was that, well, it was 2020, right? Did you put that out?
Yeah.
Yeah, right before COVID. But you mentioned in a previous interview how before that album, when you had albums like Divorce or Circulation, you said you felt like you couldn't sing, and you said my voice finally caught up with my pen. I'm curious, like, so for those previous albums when you were with Japanese girls before Hotel Mira, was there any, I don't know, regret, or I don't know, like, were you, did something felt off the entire time when you were with Japanese girls?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think sort of, if I'm being really honest with myself, I wasn't in a great place, just sort of, mentally and emotionally. I had, a lot going on that was, distracting and negative, and I was lucky enough that at that exact time I was put on the road and into this opportunity that was just this gigantic distraction from what I was going through, and this opportunity to like express myself and make music, and I was always trying to make the best music I could, and I work on music every day. Like that idea of getting better at my craft is really important to me. But yeah, just sort of in the technicality of it, it just came down to I'm just a slow learner. I was tone deaf when I started trying to be a singer at 10 years old in my Beatles cover band, which was my first job, my first professional gig. And so somebody would sing one note, I'd sing another note, and think we'd sung the same note. Like I had no idea how sort of off or inaccurate I was as a singer, until, you know, people started telling me or saying I had a bad voice, or what have you. And I suppose I'm just a combination of like stubborn and passionate. So even when a lot of people sort of told me that there was no possibility of me getting to be a singer with the voice that I was equipped with, I was determined to get better and chase that sort of dream.
You've been very open about, you know, the past and things you've dealt with. One thing I want to bring up, and music really feels like it saved your life, I would say, literally and metaphorically. You mentioned at 10 years old, you asked your dad for a guitar, and that was the first time you really felt relief. And you had your guitar teacher named Al, who I guess helped you out. Can you talk about that? Like, what was that feeling like just before you started playing music to when you first got your first guitar? What did that feel like?
I can't really remember too much of my life before I picked up the guitar. I'm told I was really shy. I didn't have really any sort of interests. I just sort of I don't know. I probably liked I know I liked cartoons, like I know I liked junk food, like just like sort of a normal kid in that sense. But yeah, there was definitely all sorts of horrors kind of going on in my life that I've, you know, blocked out. But so I don't know really how to describe it, but music sort of gave me a framework of what was going to be important to me, and it gave me role models, sort of, for better or worse, and it gave me maybe even like morals and principles that came with being a part of a music scene. And my mentor made it really clear to me that the most important thing in the music industry, or not, just being a musician, just being part of a music scene, was to play good shows and to write good songs and to be kind to people. So when things started happening in my life that sort of were closer to like a capital S success, I was excited and ambitious, but I had pretty low expectations in terms of where this thing was going to take me.
Interesting. Okay. I wanted to, I mean, just taking a deep dive into your music, there's a lot of different themes kind of being talked about, just stuff about mental health, LGBT2S+, a lot of other things. So just a few songs I want to bring up is Brandon, Mushrooms, Bully for You, This Could Be It For Me. I'm curious, for songs like those and other songs where there's much deeper meaning and stuff that's personal to you, do you ever worry that people don't pick up on the meaning behind songs?
That's a great question.
And I ask that, sorry, because I'll be honest, for me personally, listening to your music, at first, a lot of it went over my head. And that's not like a bad thing. It's just, you know, the lyrics are very deep. And thank God you actually put out some like explainer videos, which I'll get into, about like this song means this and this song means that. But again, I feel like as an artist, especially someone like yourself who's so passionate about those topics, again, like it wouldn't shock me. Like if you said, yeah, it would upset me if maybe people don't maybe understand what I'm talking about.
I think,
or maybe not.
you know what, man? It's a little bit less. I think once I put it out in the world, and I feel like I've put out this message, and I've expressed what I wanted to express. It's not really. It's not really in my control whether people sort of latch onto that part of it, or if they just like the melodies and the rhythms and the passion behind it. I think no matter what people are getting or not getting from the lyrics, I think what they're feeling is somebody with their heart on their sleeve, and somebody who is trying to make music with their friends that touches people. So, sometimes maybe there's a very, very direct feeling of someone feeling like they're being directly spoken to, and their story is being echoed in what I have to say. And sometimes I just think it's a great function of music that,
Sorry, you sounded off my little device. Anyway, it's fine. You said the word.
Incredible. I that's so funny. Yeah, I mean, I think about songs like Kids by MGMT, which is sort of actually about climate change, and Pumped Up Kicks by Foster the People, which is about a school shooting. Sometimes people don't pick up on that, but I've always liked the juxtaposition of creating something through the kind of Trojan horse of pop music, to kind of be the spoonful of sugar that makes the medicine go down, which is sort of pointing at the shortcomings and problems and frustrations people can have with the systems of power, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. So again, this latest album, I Am Not Myself, would you say, I mean, I don't want to ask if it's your best work, but would you say this is the most meaningful album to date for you?
Yeah, probably. Perfectionism was definitely something incredibly personal to me. I think every record sort of feels like it's addressing things that I was going through at the time of writing it, or around that time, or what have you. But if it feels deeper to you, if it feels like it's getting at something that feels more important in your eyes, that makes me really happy that there'd be a progression towards that. But yeah, I just try and I just try and dig deep and not repeat myself and challenge myself in terms of what I'm putting out in the world.
Mm-hmm. I want to do, like I said, a bit of a deep dive into some of the songs off the newest album, I'm Not Myself. So again, the first one, starting off with Everything Once, which again I think is personal for you. I think you mentioned Everything Once is about a friend of yours who passed away, and then kind of dealing with addiction and mental health. Does it? Because I feel like you've experienced heartbreak quite a few times. Does it get easier the more you talk about it or sing about it, or does it remain difficult for you to talk about it?
That's a good question. I think it's cathartic to give you like an insight in my process. I'm usually writing about the most intense, hard, sad things when I'm in a good mood and I'm pulling sort of from retrospect, and I'm able to draft a narrative or a story or an angle around something that I am trying to understand, rather than just dropping myself in the midst of that heartbreak as it's happening. I can't write like that in a way where the writing ends up being good. I'm too confused. I don't know where sort of to put a focus if I try to write about these crises, I suppose, as they're happening. I like being in a good mood and then sort of taking a deep dive through my psyche, knowing I'm gonna, be safe, and then trying to write stories from there. From dark instances. I don't know if it gets harder or easier. I certainly had some moments with the song Mama where it conjured up some pain and regret and confusion that I didn't see coming. But one thing I'll say that's sort of positive is live at these concerts, or when I get a message from some kids who relate to Everything Once, or sort of any song with that kind of subject matter, I feel less alone in my experience in my shame, and that's sort of what the live show is the greatest example of, because it's all these people coming together to consciously or subconsciously acknowledge their shame and not be burdened by it.
Mm. Yeah, no, totally, you're right. You mentioned like not feel like you're not alone in this struggle or whatever you're going through. Speaking of that, that brings me to my next song, which is Fever Pitch, talking about love. Will you bleed for it? I'm a masochist. I think our generation, I'm a millennial, I'm 35, dealing with like dating apps and ghosting. It's like such a common thing. Do you want to talk about your experience, or I don't know, like, or even from Vancouver? It's funny. People are like, "Oh, dating life sucks in Vancouver. It sucks in Toronto. You're in LA a lot." It's probably just as bad in LA, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that if that's sort of what people are getting from that song, I think that's definitely like a color or an aspect of that song is like frustration with the casual aspects of a romantic relationship, or feeling like you're being lied to or manipulated, but you can't call it out because neither person has really made a commitment to say, like, I'm a person you can count on, you're a person I can count on, like, let's let's be accountable to each other. There's so much that goes on before that stage that is wildly frustrating. But a big part of that song is sort of acknowledging how with the Perfectionism album, I was really, it's a lot of heartbroken lyrics. It's a lot of like, deeply felt sadness, and this like sort of dark poet character, who, sort of celebrates his flaws and celebrates, his, fear, like while acknowledging it, like almost celebrating it. I just started to think to myself how frustrating it would be to sort of date somebody like that. It's sort of making fun of me and how I used to be, as much as it's making fun of anybody else.
Interesting. Okay, and I think that's great that you could kind of, I guess, poke fun of yourself. Just what it sounds like.
Yeah, well, it's just sort of the other side of the coin. It's like, it's after being celebrated for all that sort of sensitivity and humor and vulnerability and openness and sort of acknowledgement of the vulnerability and the brokenness. It was just time to flip the script and acknowledge the frustrating elements that come with the same sort of conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just moving on from that song, of course, again, there's a few others just to quickly go down the list. So Alone in America, a great song, which talking about you moving to LA. I really like Dancing with the Moonlight, especially like kind of halfway through, there's like this shift and change in the tone, the sound. And there's like kind of this disco vibe, which I think doesn't surprise me because I think you said like ABBA's maybe one of your inspirations. Can you talk about that song, Dancing with the Moonlight?
Yeah, that song's all about going to... that song's almost more about moving to LA than Alone in America is. That song's about moving to LA and like trying to be in entertainment and make it and and losing sight of oneself, and almost celebrating that, like, it'll all be worth it once I'm XYZ famous, you know? And just like the traps you can fall into with that kind of thinking. So it's sort of like the amalgamation of all my anxieties that I was having when I knew I was going to move, and I knew why I was going to move, and I just sort of created this story of almost like a Murphy's Law of what it could be like if I moved. Just all my anxieties about LA are sort of in that song, you know. And there's a real nobility to moving somewhere and betting on yourself and all that stuff. So, you know, like, I wanted to celebrate that and as well, but also sort of examine maybe the emptiness that inspires one to feel like they need a nation of validation to feel okay about themselves. And then, like, and if my body is a business, then good riddance to my business sense. This idea that, like, becoming a product is not going to affect the way that you see yourself, and the way you just operate on a daily basis is absurd. So, you know, it's also sort of like taking stock of the complications of parasocial relationships and just sort of what the strange dichotomy of feeling observed but not necessarily known.
You've talked, just to move away from the music for a second, because you talked about your love for New York, and you did live in New York for a little bit, but can I ask why not move there permanently versus LA?
That's a good question. I think just practically, in a way, it's to do with the film industry. That's where a lot of that's taking place, and a lot of the music industry as well, in terms of me writing songs for other people, and in terms of me, you know, if the strike wasn't going on, auditioning, working in film, that's sort of what I chalk it up to. But I definitely could see, you know, best case scenario, moving to New York and living there. If a few things go right, I would love to do that.
Perfect. Awesome. Let's go. There's one more song I want to talk about, off, again, the latest album. If you're comfortable, of course, talking about it, because you said it's very personal to you, which is Mama. So you put out a post on Instagram. I just want to read kind of what you wrote to part of it, where you said, talking about how it's personal to you, and you said, speaking as someone whose singing career often feels like bleeding onto a microphone while people cheer, I think that is saying something. And that really stuck out to me, because I've spoken with other artists who, they'll sing about these really big topics like suicide, and people, like, they're singing about these very deep topics. Meanwhile, people are just listening to that song, not realizing maybe, or even if they realize what is being said, they're still like, just like, oh yeah, this is a great song. With Mama, again, first of all, are you like comfortable talking about that song?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that, again, I'll just ask it, is that about, I guess, your family? Is that about like your parents and going through the divorce?
Maybe on some level. I think it's more about growing up around addiction and just the realities of how hard it can be to compete with something that all consuming. And just the things that fall by the wayside and get deprioritized or what have you in those scenarios. And then also, I think the reason it affects me so much on one level is I had a family member die drunk driving that I never got to meet. And supposedly he was the family member that was the most like me, sort of the most kind of sensitive or what have you. So yeah, it's I think some part of it is just really tethered to that, yeah. And then sort of and then it's this strange acknowledgement too of like, why am I so heavy when I could be light? It's something I've said to myself so much to sort of beat myself up, but it's something that I've also heard from the world at times when I've brought up things that were hard in my life. Sometimes people don't know what they're saying, and they sort of don't let you have autonomy over your own pain, over your own experiences. Maybe you don't know how to articulate them well enough to really let people know how much you're hurting. So, you bring up something casually, and then your friends treat it as casual, or somebody treats it as casual because you don't know exactly how to bring it up, and then all of a sudden somebody gives you the message that you're feeling sorry for yourself, or if I were you, I'd be so happy because of XYZ. Why are you so heavy when you could be light? You're a bummer to be around. If I was you, I'd be happy, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's like a big thing that the song is about, as well as some of this stuff that happens at an early age. There's no timeline for when you're going to get over it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really glad, and thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. I've thought about this recently, especially listening to the song Mama and some of your other songs. I feel like we're just taught with music, when we listen to music, it's like, oh, we'll enjoy it, whatever we hear. But I feel like with certain songs, maybe even like Mama, or maybe you don't have to necessarily enjoy it, but just listen to it and learn from it, and either it helps you personally, or it just helps you learn more about the person, you in this instance, learn more about them and what they went through. Does that make sense? Because again, I feel like with music, we feel like, oh, we have to enjoy everything, but no, I feel like sometimes just gotta sit back and just listen.
It's music is almost like unexplainable, or like almost like magic with the effect it can have on us. So it's sort of dealer's choice how people want to experience it, or what they want to focus on in listening to our records, or Elliott Smith, or Janelle Monáe, or like whatever it is. There's plenty of things that people get from music, and I'm totally cool with the idea that people don't necessarily put on our records to have a good time that they might put on our records to acknowledge what's going on in their lives and move through something easier, like if they have grief of some kind, you know. And then I also think that like the pop music aspect of this band is something to really be proud of. But I'm with you. The phrase enjoy doesn't exactly sum up a lot of a listener experience, including mine. And I thought about that in terms of like when posting about the album, I don't think I've really said like happy listening or like hope you're enjoying the album, because obviously that's not sort of the full 3-dimensional experience of how a great deal of people are going to consume it.
I feel like that might be challenging for you because, as you know, at the end of the day, yes, all this stuff, it's personal to you, but it's also a business. You need to sell stuff, right? So do you feel that pressure, I guess, from the outer, I don't know, managers or publicists to be like, no, you got to do it this way?
Or
you just tell them to fuck?
Not really. I think again, it's such an unlikelihood that this band is as successful as it is. Cause like a big part of my journey is sort of like, a lot of things that from the outside eye might, amount to career suicide. You know, being a pop band whose biggest songs are about me taking my own life. You know, on paper, that's full stop a bad idea. If you talk to people about like what's going to work on a pop chart, right? So with that in mind, we have incredible fans who want to be a part of whatever we're doing, and you know, they might want a t-shirt, they may want a vinyl, they are going to want tickets to our concerts. If that puts money into the industry or what have you, and it means that more people get to hear the music, that's what I'm getting out of it at the end of the day is I know what this band means to people at this point. There's a lot of passionate folks when it comes to how the music has hit them, and I sort of understand the XY graph of like the more successful we are, the more whatever records we sell, all that sort of gross stuff, at its noble heart could result in more people in the world feeling seen, more people in the world feeling less outcasted through this music. I just want everybody who likes these songs to get a chance to see them live or hear them, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I see a couple people here just commenting like, I feel seen, I feel known, which is, you know, that's obviously great to hear. There's someone asking a question I'll ask if you don't mind. It says, since Fever Pitch establishes that true love's a lobotomy, in King of the World, are you subtly asking for love when you ask for lobotomist Rex?
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of like, you know, whoever asked that in the chat, they're a good sort of lyric detective. That's exactly kind of what ends up sort of happening. It's like you have your Hotel Mira decoder ring that all of a sudden lobotomy means true love. So when I'm asking for a lobotomy after fever pitch has been established, yeah, that's sort of what I was going for. And it's cool that that person picked up on it. And yeah, and it almost gives King of the World less of a cynical tone, right? It's like, you know, I'm in need of true love. Do you know someone good? It's like, it's flirty all of a sudden rather than just this sort of sardonic, dark joke.
I want to talk a bit about just looking on your TikTok channel, because I think about this a lot, and I felt this when you put it out there. It's one of your pinned videos on TikTok, and you talk about how, you know, hey, like, this is us, Hotel Mira. Maybe you've heard of us, maybe you haven't, and you just maybe talk a bit about the struggles of getting noticed, especially within the algorithms. And you just basically say to the effect of, you know, just keep going. If you're in it for the right reasons, you'll get there, whatever that may be. And I felt that because, again, you know, I feel like, you know, with all the work I do, and maybe I don't get enough recognition, but should I be looking for that? Probably not. But let's be real, like, everyone wants some recognition, I think some attention. So can you just talk about those challenges with social media and kind of everything, all that?
Yeah, sure thing. Also, Tessa Violet has an amazing video on the same thing, and so does Boy Jr., by the way. Just so that's clear, it's not entirely my intellectual property to say that it's hard to get eyes on what you're doing, especially as the app changes and becomes more pay to play or based on outrage, or just based on it being more competitive. So where I'm at with it today is, I think if I meet creatives who don't want to use social media, I totally get it. And I wish them well. I do think it is almost a necessity of the job at this point. And what I want to remind people about social media is there's sort of this really misguided theory that everyone's having a good time as they make things.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of one person I know who's like, yeah, this is sick. I'm editing another video that's going to get 200 views. And like, it's like, so there's these sort of,
why you gotta look into my soul like that and call me out like that, Charlie?
But it's these lies that are so predicated that I think have something to do with how videos that perform well are presented, you know, because of this like highlight reel aesthetic of huge smile on my face. This is happening for me. That's happening for me. My life kicks ass, you know? How could we not derive from that viewing experience that people are having a really good time as they're making these things? So, you know, with that in mind, you get the feeling of depression or hopelessness, or this has no meaning, or that's not going to work as you're making your thing. And then you know that that your video will do better if you slap a smile on your face. And it's just this really complicated, like, thing where if you, prioritize honesty, in your life, it can be a really confusing, test on your integrity. So I like to remind people that it's hard work, and it's not this thing that you're necessarily supposed to derive joy from. It's another tool in your tool belt, and I like to bring up that it's free.
Yeah.
You know, there are videos that I've made on this channel for free that have been a better marketing campaign than things the label has paid thousands of dollars for.
Exactly. Yeah.
So with that in mind, like, do all of my videos perform exactly how I want them to? No. But I think more often than not, the juice is worth the squeeze. And if you're doing something cool and you believe in it, put your shoulder behind it and promote it and take that risk and feel that sort of, feeling of, I'm worth it. When I got on TikTok, I made a lot of, videos that felt really freeing because no one I knew followed me. So I was more comfortable saying things like, our new song's amazing, check it out, like, you won't regret it. Because there's sort of a culture of the opposite sort of occurs. Like, you can get more self-conscious as more people or more people you interact with follow you. Personally, I get more self-conscious, and I'm more scared of comments that are going to say, who do you think you are? But when I first joined TikTok, I didn't see a lot of who do you think you are in the comments of other people's videos or of mine. I just saw people being creative, and it was super inspiring. Yeah, so that's sort of my roundabout answer to just like addressing what I think about it. And there's also that like amazing Tyler the Creator video where he explains that how much it frustrates him to see artists work on something for years or months and then only post it on their Instagram story once and sort of think to themselves that they've done the work. He brings up that he's, at that event that he's speaking at, he's like, my album came out a year ago. I'm still promoting it. And that was sort of what happened with perfectionism, where that was the music that I still wanted to promote and get people to check out. So that's what I was putting my shoulder behind, even though sort of there could be an argument that it was old news. But I saw that there were plenty of people who hadn't heard it. And honestly, you bring up like the old days with the old band. I saw people in the comments of some of my videos that did really well that were like, I didn't know you still made music. Like, the algorithm screwed me out of people even knowing about the name change. Crazy. If you want to talk about what the algorithm can screw you out of. And it's wonderful too to have kids be like, to only know that this latest album exists, or to only know that like From Perfectionism On exists. Like, that's fascinating and cool to me as well. But yeah, I do think it's hard to do this app in a way that you leave feeling sort of like morally clean and be able to succeed through the algorithms because of we know outrage is rewarded. We know that I'd have a better chance at going viral, pointing out why something sucks than just showing people my song and saying like, I hope you like it. And that's a really frustrating, cynical element of this thing too, that I try to stay away from, but all the while know that that's why a lot of people are blowing up harder, is because they have no problem with that sort of moral dilemma of, okay, I have no problem creating a platform via outrage and hate and division. They're willing to, if they think the juice is worth the squeeze on that, that's fine. But I'd rather not participate in that for the most part. Honestly, that makes me feel like part of the problem. You know, those sort of algorithms and those sort of attention economy and outrage economy is why a lot of things have taken off recently that are absolutely frightening and horrible in the world.
Yeah. Oh, and listen, I think especially your fans, excuse me, if they saw you acting any differently than who you truly are, I think they'd call you out, or they would know it wasn't real. So obviously for you especially, I think and the band, it is in your best interest to remain true to yourselves, right? So, but yeah, you're 100% right with everything you said. And you know, part of the hope I have with my channel, I'm not this big creator, I have a little platform, but is to get out, is to connect people with your music and all these other artists' music that maybe they haven't heard. Like me personally, I never heard of you guys before, but I'm obviously glad I've discovered you. And I'm hoping that, you know, even if you gain one extra fan from this through me or whatever, that's great, you know, because there's so much talent in Canada, and I worked in radio and promotions, which is why I started this channel in the first place, because there's so many talented artists in Canada, and you want to try to promote them as best as you can, right? But it's obviously not that easy to do that. But what I want to ask, I guess, just kind of wrapping things up, is what's the plan for the rest of the year?
Well, we're going to Australia next month to play South by Southwest Sydney, and we signed a distribution deal there with MGM Distribution. So hopefully we'll be in Australia a great deal over the next couple of years. I've already started, I should say, have already started kind of crafting songs for another project. We got some gigs that we're trying to set up in promotion of the album, and there's a couple festivals and stuff that we've got into. So I think it'll be a lot of business as usual in terms of being a band in an exciting way. That's sort of what comes to mind, you know, really strategizing and trying to figure out how to get this album in front of the people who might benefit from it. That's really important to me, because I really think we made a record with great songs. So it's sort of about marketing it and playing good shows and connecting with people, and it's exciting to have my life be so intertwined with music at this point, to have a great deal of my life be discussing upcoming shows and releases and all this stuff. I'm grateful for it, that's for sure. And yeah.
Yeah, no, it's exciting times. And I think, again, with a lot of the songs you put out, especially recently with this new album, I think it's going to connect with a lot of people and I think help a lot of people, which is always a great thing, of course. So, good luck with everything. And yeah, I'll put out a few clips of this over the next few days. And yeah, I just wish you guys all the best.
Thanks so much, and best of luck with the channel. I think it's amazing that you've already taken it this far. And my dad the other day talked to me about how I reminded him of Kobe Bryant's mentality of like, win or lose, you do the same thing the next day, in terms of creating content or learning to be a better singer, or learning to, just working on getting better and sort of one of my favorite quotes of all time is George Clinton from Parliament and Funkadelic.
Okay.
He said, "The funk is its own reward." So like the fact that we get to be artists in the first place, the fact that we get a kick at the can, is what we're actually going after if we think about it, and the rest is gravy.
That's it. That's how we end it. Awesome. No, thank you again, Charlie. And yeah, good luck with everything.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to meet you. Best of luck.
All right, you too. Later.